I haven't been to the dentist in over 15 years, and I thought it was about time I got someone to look at my teeth. Not just because it's been 15 years since someone checked out these pearly whites, more like pearly yellows, but the person you're going to meet today is not just an ordinary dentist. He is absolutely killing the content game online. He is a dental business influencer in the making. I want all of you guys to say a very warm hello to my friend, Waleed. How are you, brother?
Good, yourself?
Very good, now that I'm here. Good. You gotta take care of me, man.
Of course, let's do it.
All right, tell me what we're doing today.
So, you haven't been for 15 years.
Yep.
So what I'm gonna take you through today is basically our new patient exam or consultation.
Yep.
So, we do a very similar sort of thing whether we're doing an examination or whether we're doing a consult. Right? So if you've come in for, you haven't been for 15 years, you just wanna get things checked out, or whether you want something specific, right? And you're looking at getting cosmetics or you wanna get some teeth replaced, take you through this walkthrough of all the different things that we include, because we try and take a very, very comprehensive approach.
Yep.
Right? It's very different to what most people are used to at most dentists, but definitely within the corporate sphere as well, probably an unseen sort of workflow. So I'm actually very excited to show you exactly how we take this, because I think you'll be surprised at how comprehensive we can really get when it comes to, diving into those pearly yellows and yours. Like when someone comes in for the first time, we lead them around, we bring them in, you jump into the chair. So if you want to come around here, you can jump into the chair.
Okay.
We're treated as if we're going through this, properly. And so before we dive into anything, it's really important that we get a bit of an idea as to what you're here for. But everyone comes in for different things. They've got different reasons. Some people just want to clean. Some people getting things checked every 6 months, and they're just doing their regular sort of clean. Whereas you have some people that haven't been for a long time, like yourself. Right, so it really is about establishing a bit of a baseline, right? Getting to sort of understand where you're at the moment, and where you want to get to. So whether that's for, like I said, a new patient exam, right? Or whether it's for something like a consultation, this is what we do. So we start off, I'm going to ask you a few questions. We'll talk about when the last time you went to the dentist was, and we'll go through things like quite in depth in regards to the sort of work that you've had in the past and how you're taking care of your teeth. And then after that, usually I will give you a bit of an idea as to what we're doing, my approach, right, which is generally quite preventative in nature, okay? And so what I generally like to do is I like to, sort of pre-frame things to you, right, so that you have a clear expectation of what's about to come.
On average, the people that come in here, do they actually know what they need done or what's wrong with their tooth?
Yeah, so it's a mix of things, right? So you get some people that will come in just to get things checked up, right? So like if they just want to, like they might know that there's a few different things that need to be checked up, but it's sort of a 50-50 split. Like there'll be some people that'll just come in, just general checkup, clean. They might have gone 12 months, 6 months ago. And then you've got people that, they're still going regularly, but they might come in with a specific issue. Right? They might have pain or they might have a toothache. And then you've got people that come in with more comprehensive sort of inquiries. So if they want to change the way that their smile looks, or if they've got some missing teeth and they can't eat and all that sort of stuff. So there's very vast spectrum in regards to what people come in with in terms of the complaint or the presentation.
How often is it that someone comes in and you think they want one thing, but then once you actually look, they might need something completely different?
Very common.
Very common?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example?
Very common. Like for example, people will come in with the specific issue, which is an issue that the thing with your teeth is that they don't tell you that there's something going wrong. Right? So it's like, erosion on a car, that car or that engine might be getting damaged for a very long period of time, and you don't know that it's getting damaged until the entire thing busts.
Yeah.
Right? There might be telltale signs, like you hear a noise here and there, right? And if you're switched on and proactive, then you'll pick up on that and you'll go and get it checked out. But human nature is that a lot of the time we sweep things under the rug, right? So it's the exact same thing, is that, people might come in with one specific thing that is causing them pain, that prompted them to come in, but that presentation is the only thing that's prompted them to come in, but there might be a whole bunch of other things that are on their way to getting there, but they just haven't gotten to that point yet. So usually after we have that conversation, the next thing that we do is we take some photos, right? What we generally do is we start off with some photos. All right, so you can give me a big smile of the teeth, that's it. The next step of the process, we usually take some X-rays. All right.
Yep.
So what we're going to do, pop these ones inside your mouth, one on both sides. All right. And this will essentially just show us, if you've got any fillings, cavities, anything going on between the teeth. It'll just bring it up all in clear detail. Get you to open wide. That's it. And just put your teeth together. That's it. All right. What we do next is we move on to the next set of X-rays, right? So this one's a full mouth one.
Right.
And what this one does is it basically is going to give us a full snapshot of everything that's going on, including your sinuses, your jawbones, your joints, and all that sort of stuff. Any infections lingering in there, right? So if you come around this way with me, this one is a little bit of a walk down the hallway. There you go, man, all done.
What that did is get more of like a holistic view of my mouth as well as my face.
Exactly. So not your face, but all of the, like your top jawbone, your bottom jawbone, right? Your sinuses, right? Everything up and around here, right? So it gives us a full snapshot in one go of everything that's happening. So for example, if you haven't had your wisdom teeth taken out, you can see your wisdom teeth, right? And then we can come up with a plan if we need to surgically remove them. The biggest part is that many people, especially in their checkups, if you go to most dentists, they won't take these, right? They'll take them for a specific reason, but we find it really important to be able to take these as a diagnostic and preventative tool, because what that does is it allows us to screen and pick up on things that may not necessarily be causing you pain. But for example, if you've got a bit of an infection that's coming from a tooth that has a root canal that's been done a long time ago, and the infection has restarted, then there's no way for you to know that until you end up with a little bit of an abscess.
Gotcha.
Right? But on the X-ray, if we take something like this, we can see it straight away, even if it hasn't gotten to that point yet where it's actually become painful.
This is not something that's very common in most dental clinics.
Yeah, most clinics will refer this off to like a radiology clinic. So you might get a referral to go to one of like the local radiology clinics to get the scans done and then get sent back. But we find it very useful not only for preventative diagnosing when people come in through the door like we're doing today, but then also for treatment planning and for mid-appointment or mid-treatment scans and stuff that we need to take as well.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Sweet. So that this is like pretty much really cool advantage that you guys have that a lot of other clinics don't.
100%.
Sweet. All right, what's next?
Let's head back. All right, so I'll get you to pop your jaw wide open. Yeah, and just move your jaw side to side. There you go, clench your teeth together. Any soreness or tenderness through there at all?
Nope.
Nope. So what we're doing there is just checking your jaw joints, checking your muscles, all right, seeing if there's any signs of stress-related joint issues, right? If you're grinding, clenching your teeth, anything that might be happening at nighttime, right? Usually manifests itself up in the jaw or in your muscles as well. All right, so had a look. Gums, teeth.
Yep.
Don't worry. Once we finish the clean, I'm going to take you through all of it in detail.
Perfect.
So what I'm going to do first is we are going to give it all a clean. Right, get rid of some of that build up and get your gums nice and clean again. All right, you ready to go?
Let's do it.
Good experience. Teeth are all nice and clean.
Yeah.
Perfect, bro. So I'm going to take you through what your teeth look like, and this situation, like how we're seated right now, is usually how I'll take the patients through everything that we've found. So if you want to come in close, man, I'll take you through it all.
All right.
So we always start with some of the photos. Just have a look through and just see exactly what's going on. Okay. So taking these sort of photos, really important to basically give you at least a bit of an idea of what your teeth actually look like, okay? And it's really important to give like a visual illustration of, the different things that might be going on.
Yeah.
Right, so in your case, from having a look, surprisingly, 15 years, your teeth are actually in quite good condition. Okay. And what you're doing at home in terms of cleaning is working. So the only thing that I could sort of pinpoint is just your wisdom teeth. All right. Your wisdom teeth are not going to come out properly. Okay. And so you will definitely have to have them removed at some stage.
Wow. Okay. That's good.
But cavities wise, no cavities. A little bit of build up definitely could do with was a good idea that we did a clean today. Okay. Because now that we've been able to get rid of a lot of that build up and some of that staining as well. I think you're probably heavy into your coffee. So yeah, definitely a good idea just to get them cleaned every 6 to 12 months, right?
Yeah.
6 months preferably, right? You just keep them clean, keep them nice and shiny.
I know there are a certain do's and don'ts and certain things that everyone should be doing to maintain good oral health. So if you had to give me, a quick checklist, a daily checklist to send me home with, what would it be?
If what you're doing at the moment is working quite well and you haven't had many cavities and you don't have that many gum issues, then I'm not necessarily going to come out of out of everything and be like, you got to do this and this, and you're not doing flossing twice a day, and what's wrong with you? So that's what's really important, is understanding what your risk is, right? Yeah, and then basically coming up with sort of a custom plan or custom advice based on that, rather than just giving blanket advice for everyone.
People that are professionals, super busy, I guess main excuses that you get is, I don't have enough time. For people like that, what is your usual go-to advice?
A lot of those people actually don't think of time in terms of the time that it takes for me to brush my teeth for two to 5 minutes a day. They think if I don't do that 2 to 5 minutes a day, that means that I might have to spend 3 hours in the chair.
Okay.
Right. So the people that don't see it like that, that's an important reframe for them, right? To be like, look, I know you're finding it difficult to find the time to do your brushing and flossing for a few minutes a day, but on the flip side of things, if we talk about the importance of time and you being someone that's busy, if you ended up with a toothache tomorrow and you had to take 3 days off work because of the recovery from having to get that tooth pulled out, how would you feel in terms of the time that you've lost?
Yeah.
Right? And majority of the time people will be like, you know what? I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where some of these reframes and these shifts are really important.
What is some very, very obvious but clear do's and don'ts regarding your teeth?
Man, I don't think there's any do's and don'ts, man. I think it's all balance, right? Like everything in moderation generally tends to work well. So, if you're eating sugar, just don't eat a lot of it. If you're exposing your mouth to like carbohydrates, same sort of thing. If you're, not brushing enough, then brush more, right? One negates the other. So if you can do things in balance, then you can still live the life how you want it, right? And it's not going to have major implications on the rest of the way that you're doing things. Beautiful, man. So that's it. We're all done for today, right? Taking you through everything. Hopefully you got some good advice from that.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So next step from here, like we talked about, let's get you booked back in for 6 months. And then we can just keep on top of things from there.
Bro, 100%. Well, now that you've checked out my teeth, it's time for me to check out your business. So let's go somewhere. Let's chat about the whole business side of this thing.
Beautiful.
You down?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's go. Dr. Waleed, welcome to the podcast element of our episode. And I just want to start all the way back, bro, which is, I think, something that really reveals why you're doing what you're doing now, which is, how did you get into dentistry?
It's a good question. No, I honestly just fell into it. Like, I never really knew what I wanted to do. Like, being from an ethnic background, it was always get into some sort of, safe degree. And for me, there was a turning point when it was going to be either investment banking or like dentistry.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was actually going to get into medicine or dentistry. I ended up getting an offer. And then at that point, to be honest, I didn't know enough about investment banking to take the leap of faith. So it was dentistry. And like when I was studying and, moving through uni, I actually did not enjoy it. I didn't like it at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I only really started to enjoy, all the clinical aspect of dentistry once I actually graduated and started working, and then, started getting into it.
Yeah, right. So that's very interesting. So what you're doing full time now is something you initially hated.
Yeah, essentially.
Right. Well, what made you sort of fall in love with it?
I think for me, like I was telling you before, like for me, a big part of my life, especially when I was in high school and then in uni, was always to be involved in some sort of business. Right. So I was always focusing on marketing or business or something along those lines. And when I started to realize that dentistry has such a big business and marketing component to it, I saw that I was able to apply all of these principles and everything that I'd learned over the last couple of years to an industry in which it's quite archaic in the way that it does things. And so that's sort of where everything started, and being able to see like how I could implement all the sales and communication and all the stuff that I'd learned throughout my, side hustles, if you want to call them that. I was able to apply and see like tangible results straight away because it was my day-to-day job. I think that's something that really started to it allowed me to intertwine like the aspect of my life that I really enjoyed, which was business and marketing, and then apply it to an industry which gives you the ability to, get tangible results straight away.
Right.
Yeah.
And this fascination with business started all the way in high school, right? So did you ever actually chase it or act on it?
Yeah. There was, if you talk to my family, there was always like, there was times, I remember there was a time when, man, if I'd stuck with this, I would have been a billionaire by now. But like, I remember there was a time when AliExpress first started, this would have been like at least like grade 9 or grade 10, somewhere around that point. AliExpress, I discovered it, and they used to have all these shirts that you could buy, like all these counterfeit ones, like Santa Cruz and like Crooks and Castles and all these random brands. So I remember there was a time when I ordered like, a whole bunch of these shirts for my birthday, and I was like, I'm going to sell these. And then I was on Facebook, like, I think at that time there wasn't a marketplace.
Yeah.
So I was hustling them as like on Facebook groups and on all these different pages. And I put them into a duffel bag once, and I went down to the Gold Coast, Harbour Town, and was just like cold approaching people with like a, printed out leaflet. So yeah, that's where it started from. Like and before that, like, there was times when I was, doing like, the whole lemonade stand thing on the front. So I don't know, there was always something inherent that came to me that just made me do that sort of stuff in my spare time.
Right.
And even in high school, I was pursuing all of that. So yeah, it's just one of those.
Damn. I mean, like this is almost like, I would say this is really, really rare in the dentist world, where someone's origin story is more similar to like the origin story of the guy who started Culture Kings, as opposed to someone who's going to end up as a dentist, right? So you are always after this business thing. Did you find anything like that stuck as a business? Because I know you've done some business related stuff during a university.
Yeah.
So can you talk me through that? How that came about and what you were able to do with that?
Yeah, so I think the thing that probably stuck for the longest was a marketing agency that I started by myself, and then it just sort of naturally evolved into other versions of that. Like started off getting into marketing, and then from marketing I started to build websites, and then from building websites into Facebook ads and into all other sorts of marketing. I think marketing in itself is the one thing that has stuck since the start, right? So whether it's been marketing for other businesses or marketing a clinic, or being able to market to get specific procedures through the door, or whether it's marketing myself and the brand that I'm trying to build at the moment, all of those things all comes back down to, the fundamental principles of marketing that you learn throughout the entire process.
Right. Yeah. So do you remember this feeling when you got your first proper big client?
Yeah.
Can you tell me that story?
Our first proper big client, honestly, it was like one of those fake it till you make it stories. Man, what I did was like, I can remember, it was like just before COVID, right? So it was just before COVID times. What I did was I hadn't actually learned how to build a website. And what I did was I started selling and hustling and like trying to, doing cold outreach and messaging people. And I ended up getting a client to build a website for $5,000. Right.
From just you have no idea how to build a website.
No, I didn't know how to build it at this point. So what I did was I knew that I had researched how to do it if I got a client, but I was like, look, at this point, learning how to do it is just going to be like, stupid because I don't actually have a client yet. So let me get a client first. And then once I've got the client, then I'll learn how to make the website.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I got the meeting with the client, and then I put on a suit and I like looked very professional, went into the store. This is in Melbourne where I used to live. And when I went in, basically sold them, closed them on the spot, did whatever I needed to do to act as though like I was, running this website building agency. And yeah, closed the client, went home, and then basically opened up Webflow and started watching tutorials on how to build a website from scratch. So that's the number one, like that was the first time. And then when I saw that money land in my account, I was like, bro, this is insane. Like, right. I was still in uni, I was studying. I had been working a sales job prior to that, and I quit doing that job, and I was like, I'm just going to focus on this now at that point.
Right. How did you convince them as a kid studying in uni, walking into a place? Obviously you were confident, but what does it actually take to be someone who actually has no idea what they're doing, but you literally signed a high ticket deal? Like a $5,000 for a website is something that most beginners don't see for a long, long time.
Man, like I honestly, it was just this. I was like, they need something, right? And it was just building value around the thing that they need, right? So it was honestly just figuring out what it is that they need, like what's the actual value that I'm trying to deliver, right? And for them, it was just not just building a website, right? It's, sort of the way that I packaged it to them was I figured out that what they need is to recreate the perception of their brand, and then utilize that to build long-term growth, right? Brand awareness. But then the second thing was also building, part of that website so that it could be optimized for conversions and for lead inflow, right? So it was like figuring out that and packaging it up like that. And then, what I also did that I actually made a concept website. So I knew that I knew what industry they were in. And before I went in, I took their name, their logo and everything, and I built a concept website. So when I walked into that meeting, I wasn't walking in empty handed. I actually had built this 1-page website with a whole design. And I was like, look, if you let me do this for you, right, me and my team are going to build this website.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You and your team. Yeah.
Me and my team. Right. So it's like just coming across like that, packaging it in that sort of way that they saw the value that they were trying to get, whatever goals they were trying to achieve. It was just trying to get them to that end point.
Yeah, I think that's a super important point, especially for people watching who are in the beginning stages of your business and are in the stages of active client outreach. One of the biggest things that's helped me, which is very similar, is pretending like you've already signed the client before you even talk to them, which is you do some work beforehand, you lead with value. And I found that that's helped me. But so this, you would say, would you agree that this is the same sort of the concept?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the things that I thought to myself was look, I didn't have any social proof, right? And I was like, what bigger social proof than building them a website with their own brand and just showing them what I can do, right? Because that's what I mean though. So that's the extent of how to build a website I knew. Right, I didn't know how to build the entire website, and when I started doing it, the actual delivery, it was so much more complex than I first imagined. Because this website was in depth. They had, if you got SKUs, SKUs, they had.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they've got heaps of different types of things, and within that they've got different things, and with that they've got different things. So for each specific product there was different variations, and each variation needed its own page.
So it wasn't a simple copy.
It wasn't a simple and copy and paste kind of job. It was like layers within layers, and I was like, oh, what did I just sign up for?
Right.
But I knew enough, I'd played around with Webflow enough at that point to just build the first page, the homepage, and basically sell them on the vision that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and so that's to come back to your question, that's what I used as social proof, because I was like, this is how I can validate to them that, this is what they can achieve.
Right. So the next best thing, if you don't have a bunch of social proof behind you, is to do a sample job first and show them that you can do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. And so that was your first big win, and you've quit your sales job and now you're in this game full time. Did you keep going with that website agency, or did you pivot, or what was the peak of that agency before you moved on to dentistry?
In terms of monetary value, or?
In terms of the monetary value, but also the clients that you were working with and the main services that you were offering.
Yeah, I mean, so it pivoted from there into more of a marketing agency, where I was actually doing building and lead generation. I was doing ads, social media marketing. I went into that phase where I started offering every single service. And then I realized that that's too much. And then I just focused on just ads. And so there was a point when I was working with multiple clients, multiple e-commerce stores, actually doing their increasing the number of sales and the revenue. There was a few clients that we actually scaled them up from 20, 30K a month to 50, 60, 70K within 6-7 months. I did a crowdfunding campaign for an e-commerce brand that was trying to raise capital through crowdfunding. So we did an ad campaign that targeted investors to invest in this business. So there was a whole bunch of stuff like that. And then eventually I also ended up going into partnership with one of my close mates at that time, who was a creative himself. And so he basically took on the creative agency side of things. And so through his existing clients that got merged within the company that we built, plus also, other, referrals that we got throughout that, we worked with companies like Vivo, and we did some shoots for Gucci and a whole bunch of other small, not small, but a whole bunch of other companies. We did local shoots down in Melbourne for them as well.
Yeah. Awesome. And now at this point, right? So this is where I'd like to know more because I've been in this position of like running a business while you're in uni and stuff. There comes a point when you're like, this is so awesome, and I'm not a big fan of dentistry. At what point, I'm sure you were conflicted in the middle. Like, should I just drop dentistry and do this full time, or should I drop this and do dentistry full time?
Yeah.
How did you make that choice? And eventually, you're a dentist now. So,
Yeah.
how did you land here?
I had to there was a whole bunch of stuff that ended up happening when I finished, and like I made the decision at that point to move back to Brisbane. And so what that did was the agency was working because we were working, but like as time went on, the thing is like we were both spenders, right? So like we weren't reinvesting enough of the money back into the business, and so the problem was that we hadn't actually built the systems in place for it to continue operating. For example, for me to actually take that big jump, right? And we weren't building up cash reserves, like we weren't looking at cash flow. Like there's all these things that we just were ignoring, and we were just like taking that money, we were spending it, having a good time, and then we'd get more, and then like it was just a cycle.
Right.
And so like then when I had to move back to Brisbane, we tried to keep it going. And at that point I'd started working as well. And so at that point, it sort of started to go on a downhill because I'd moved away, and then being in close proximity to like the partner and all of that sort of stuff, it has an impact on the way that things are going. And then obviously having less of a focus on that because now I'm working full time as well, meant that things started to sort of go downhill. And honestly, at that point, I think it was just the agency was good, but it was like I couldn't see it scaling up to where I wanted to get to, especially in a partnership. So that's why I just decided that to take a step back, focus on dentistry, and then, you know, pick this back up by myself in a way that I'd be able to push it further.
Right.
But what ended up happening after that was that I just never ended up going down that path anyway, because the focus ended up being on. That's when I started to discover that there was, you know, I could actually do. It was like all of those skills and everything that I'd built up until that point, it hadn't gone to waste because I could come and do the exact same thing within dentistry. Because at the end of the day, marketing, marketing and sales is just it exists in any industry. Right?
Yeah.
And so. Even within dentistry, the dentistry part is just it's the service delivery component, right? And that's what most people focus on in dentistry is just how do I become clinically really good because I want to deliver a service, right? They don't focus on the other piece of the equations, which is actually getting the customers in through the door, building the brand and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, when I started to realize that, you know, I can do the service delivery and then also focus on the other aspect as well, that's when that's when my focus shifted.
Was there a big like aha moment where you sort of realized like, hey, all these skills are applicable to dentistry?
Nah, man, there's no aha moment. Like honestly, on like in the first week of working, I realized when I was talking to patients and the way that I was communicating, I was like, I'm basically like having to do sales, right? Like I was like, this is literally a sales job, right? Because like people are paying privately, everything's out of pocket, right? Using sales in dentistry is taboo among a lot of people, right? Because they're like, oh, you're a healthcare professional, so why are you using sales as an example? You shouldn't be selling anything, right? But it depends on how you define the word sales, or, you know, how you define communication. Because for me, sales is just effectively delivering value to someone that needs something, right? So if, for example, you know, you needed heart surgery and as a doctor I wasn't able to convince you that this is the best thing for you, then I'm not doing my job, right? So essentially it's the same thing, is that like people don't understand the value of certain things until you build that value in their eyes or you create clarity for them. And so for me, that's what sales is, right? In that it's the ability to, you know, communicate effectively and efficiently, right? To clear up things that the person doesn't see. And that's what I realized in that first week, was that I have the ability to communicate these things effectively, right? Because of the way that I've learned sales in the past. And I was doing the exact same thing on the spot when I was, you know, talking to people about, you know, people that had these issues in their mouth. And I was telling them that these are the issues that you have. And we have to, you know, you have to understand X, Y, Z, and this is the outcome that you need. And then basically figuring out whatever objection they had because it wasn't clear enough to them at that point.
In that sense, for all the dentists watching this, what would you say are a couple of things that you do differently to 99% of other dentists that has allowed you to be successful?
I don't do anything differently. I just think that my personality is like my experience and personality, my foundations have been built in a way that I have a complete different set of, I've got a different operating system, right? So I see things through the lens of like business foundations and like communication, sales, like marketing, and basically I can really put myself into the shoes of the other person, no matter who the individual is, right? To be able to convey things in a way that's going to make the most sense to them. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing for me, is that like I really trained myself to be able to put myself in the other person's mind, right? Because every single person that comes in through the door, they're going to see things through a completely different lens. That's one of the biggest things that I see other people aren't doing. Even when I have a conversation with them, or I see them communicate with someone else, they're talking in a way that makes sense to them, and not in a way that makes sense to the other person. And so I think that's a key differentiating factor, in that if I was going to explain something to you, I would do it in a way that makes sense to you based on the specific life path that you've come through, based off, you know, the specific set of principles that you operate with, versus someone else that, you know, has come down a completely different like path to where we've met today.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think, obviously you interact with and help coach a lot of dentists out there. What do you think is the most common mistake you see most dentists make?
Exactly that. Like just not having enough of an emphasis on the non-clinical part of dentistry.
Right.
I think I think one of the biggest things that I help people overcome when I first start to work with them is making a mental shift away from having such a big emphasis on just their clinical and like the way that, like, again, the service delivery component, but just understanding and helping them come to the realization that we live in a day and age where the non-clinical aspect, the marketing, the sales, the communication, and all of that is such a big part that it overpowers and overshadows the entire clinical portion. Right? You can never do, like, you'll never be able to do any of the procedures that you want until you can get the people to have trust in you to actually do that procedure. But even preceding that is like, you can't get them to do something until they want that thing for themselves. Right. And so getting them to understand that if you can't do this, then you're never going to get this. Right. And as things start to develop more, as more and more people, you know, start to realize these things, as the industry naturally becomes more sophisticated, the people that will end up thriving are the ones who understand the foundations.
Right. So the non-clinical side of things.
Exactly.
So with the non-clinical side of things, is that referring primarily to just your conversations that you're having with your patient, or what does that cover? Break that down for me.
Everything that doesn't everything that doesn't have to do with the way that you're delivering the product, right? So whether that's like efficiency, speed, right, leadership skills, team management, whether it's communication, whether it's persuasion, whether it's like working on your own mentality and the way that you're approaching things, like the mental models through which you function, right, and the way that you overcome complications and setbacks, like everything from the foundational level mindset piece to like the communication part and like the sales part to the actual efficiency and optimization and actually building systems in place that help you improve without you having to do too much like conscious thought.
So let's say you're a dentist, you're starting your own clinic. What can you do to set yourself up for success apart from the traditional way of doing things?
Everything that I just said.
No, but let's break it down to like actions. What are some actions you can take?
I think that if you are thinking of starting up a clinic or you're thinking of buying a clinic, don't do it just because you think that you can, just because you're billing, or like say for example, you're billing 1.5 million or you're billing $2 million in another clinic, right? That's not because of you. It's because of the fact that the person that you're working with has got you enough patients through the door, right? And they've built enough of a brand around the clinic that you have the volume to be able to actually see those patients, right? So for the one thing that I tell people is make sure you get enough exposure, and you actually, if you're working in a really high functioning clinic or a high performing clinic, first you need to get yourself up to doing big numbers. And you need to increase the scope of your skill set. But then at the same time, you also need to have a look and see what systems are these people operating that are allowing them to perform things at a high level. What sort of marketing are they doing? You know, how are they team management and how are their operations and HR set up in a way that they're creating a culture that will allow for growth, right? So it's all of these things. And one of the best things that you can do for yourself is exposing yourself to a whole bunch of different clinics to really pick and choose the best parts and then piece it together into your own clinic eventually. And so once you've done that part and now you've got into, say for example, you've done all of that and now you've gotten to the point where you found a clinic or you found a space that you're going to open it up, the first thing that I would do would be to actually to even take a step back. Like if I was to give advice, it would be to start building your own brand before you even buy that clinic, right? So that now you've got this whole perception that's built so that when you come into, for example, a new clinic, people in that area, when you start to run marketing and you start to run campaigns, you've got all of the social proof and you've got all of the stuff that's visible, right? You're not just some random person coming into an area with nothing to show, right? So yeah, it would be like understanding and learning and like looking at all the things that are working and then implementing that for your own brand. And then when you start your own clinic, you know, having that leverage and having the ability to utilize that intangible asset that you've built.
Right. Yeah. So a big key takeaway from that is start building a personal brand as soon as you can so that if you are going out on your own, you're not starting back at zero. You do have that wealth of that brand that you've created. Especially
if you're starting out in a city. Like if you're starting out in a big city like Brisbane, Gold Coast, Melbourne, Sydney, like probably Adelaide and Perth as well, like not as much to that extent, then yeah, 100%. Like you really need to have some sort of edge and you have to have something to show for people to come to you. If you're just doing it off the back of like, if you're trying to take the traditional approach of I know what I'm doing, so everyone should come to me. It's like, it doesn't work anymore. The market's too saturated, right? And unless you go out 30, 40, 50 Ks into the, you know, away from city centers, you can still use the same principles there, but then you just have to ask yourself whether that's what you want long-term.
Okay. And this is something that I see all the time in the health industry, which is, like you said, like marketing and sales and things like that are sort of looked down upon. And for people in the health industry, they sort of don't even think about that as part of something that they should be doing. And they sort of alienate that whole aspect of running the business. But the truth is someone has to do it for patients to walk in through the door. Why do you think, just from your experience with people, why do you think that is the case? And why do you think a lot of people are shying away from building their personal brand, even though people like yourself are putting it out there and showing people that it can be done?
I think honestly, it's just like a confidence thing. Like even for me, like before starting, it was, you know, a big step to take because you're putting yourself out there publicly. So, you know, for most people, that is a big step to take, right? It's something that they're scared of. There's always some sort of, you know, negative perception that comes from it from a small minority of people. But the way that we're wired as human is that we don't look at all the good stuff that comes. We just look at all the it's the negative things that stand out the most. So I think it's that. Plus, I think a lot of people probably have a fear of failure. A lot of people are just scared that they, you know, what if it doesn't work, and they just publicly humiliate themselves. And then I think some people have brainwashed themselves into thinking that it's not the right thing to do just because it's health. I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about that. Like, it's just, honestly, some people just convince themselves and I think rationalize things to themselves that allow them to feel more comfortable with the way that they're living their life.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where you're at now. Obviously, you're absolutely killing it with the content game. You've built a really nice brand for yourself, and that's bringing in clients through the door. But it's doing a lot more than, you know, enhancing your business as a dentist. You've got other streams of income now, other services and products that you provide. Can you talk us through what your current ecosystem looks like?
So obviously, in building like the personal brand, got, you know, paid ads running for bringing in patients for certain procedures, right? So higher ticket, you know, smile makeovers, implants, and all that sort of stuff, which is all ads that I run myself. And then I've got like the education and coaching side of things.
Yeah.
So currently still in the works with what exactly is happening, but sort of setting up a cohort based mentoring program, right, which will be really focused on all of the stuff that we touched on before, right? 6 modules on everything from mental mastery to like the last module is on things like building a personal brand, building like a paid media engine that brings in the cases that you want, right? So all of this stuff that I've been able to apply and learn and iterate on and just like sort of scale, and then sort of delivering that to people who really understand and that vibe with that entire part of understanding the non-clinical side of things. And then lastly is also me and one of my close mates from Adelaide, we've started like a flosser, like a product brand as well. Right, so it all ties back into the same ecosystem, just trying to stack things that sort of compound together. Right, so the same content, the same media, the same distribution networks and everything, right, all sort of linking together.
Right. And I've seen you start posting like daily content, and then like how quickly that's like taken your brand to where it is now. But we both know you're just getting started. So what is like, if this is level 1, what's level 2, 3, and 4 for you?
Honestly, man, I don't know. Like, we'll just like, I don't have any, in terms of tangible with the businesses, that's obviously the number one most important thing, right? Is that the first thing is brand perception when it comes to the clinic and bringing in the cases and just building up like the portfolio of cases and just having those ads running on autopilot that actually creates that machine. Right. Creates like a predictable way to just bring patients in. And then it sort of is like a positive feedback loop that you get cases, you do the cases, you make more content around that, that creates more ads and more content, which then pushes out further. And then it just sort of creates like this positive feedback loop of growth. And then in the education business, obviously, the goal is to really create a really, really high level course that just runs on autopilot as well, right? Something that is like consistently delivering results. And then people that want to move up, and just really invest further and further into growing themselves, giving them the ability to have access to high level mentors and really accessing things in a way that allows them to accelerate their growth really quickly. Right. It's just opening those horizons because I think people become very boxed in based on whatever chatter is happening around them. So having this having the ability to put all this content out there and show people what is capable, regardless of how much time you've been in the industry or how long you've been out of dental school, whatever it is, like opening up people's horizons, especially the people that want to see more. I think that's the biggest thing. But in regards to what level 5, 10 looks like, you never know, right? Like, eventually it might transition out of just dentistry specific content, right? Go into more of like the business and more marketing, more general sort of stuff. But right now I'm just sort of laser focused on just, step 1, going from step 1 to step 2 and just building the business to where it needs to be, right? And then go beyond that when the time comes.
Perfect. And coaching that you're offering right now and you're planning to build out is super interesting to me because we live in a day and age where coaching was really cool. Coaching like has always been like this really, it's been really popular and people have been really wanting to get coached by the right people. But now with the internet and with the whole like access to everything and the amount of social media gurus out there, there's a lot of bullshit courses that don't deliver value out there as well. So we're at this place where both people on both ends, so customers are confused because there's so much bad products out there that they're struggling to recognize a good one. And business owners, on the other hand, people who are actually wanting to deliver a really good solution are having trouble because they don't know how to differentiate themselves from all the other bullshit. How do you sort of see that whole thing going on?
I think for me personally, it's not something that I really have to worry about because I'm in an industry which is like, it's a different industry, right? Like I'm dealing with professionals, I'm dealing with people that are educated. I'm not selling anything to people that is like, I think the industries in which things get corrupted are where it's very easy to sell get-rich-quick schemes, right? And what we're selling is not a get-rich-quick scheme, right? What it is it's like it's like a foundational program for people coming out of dental school that teaches them all the stuff that they need to know for the real world that dental school doesn't teach them, right? So it's like, it's not, I think in my industry, it's not a difficult thing. If, for example, I then transition later on into teaching other people how to build a brand that can create a similar sort of thing for themselves. Like, again, I think people that are serious, and as long as you're not positioning it or you're not targeting the get rich quick people, then you should be fine, because that's if you fall into that category, then you're doing things like drop shipping, trading, forex, crypto, and you're getting into those industries. It's very, very difficult to cut through the noise, because those are industries in which you can, which getting rich quick is the sell, right? So I think it is a problem for people getting into that. But if you're basically building a brand in, whether you're a dentist, a lawyer, a real estate agent, or whether you're trying to build an info product brand and trying to teach people how you've gotten from point A to point B, and there is going to always be people who are at point A that want to know how to get to point B, right? As long as within your industry there's no existing people that are trying to sell get rich quick scheme, then you should be fine.
Have you ever had coaching from mentors doesn't have to be dentistry, could be dentistry, marketing, sales, everything. How has that sort of impacted you? Can you go into any stories?
Yeah, I mean, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars into mentoring, to coaching, courses, everything, and it's impacted me heaps. I think for me, it's just, I think for everyone that's listening, it's really important to understand what sort of person you are and the best way in which you learn. Some people really need a hands held approach, right? Someone like me doesn't need that, right? I don't need my hand held. I just need to be given the information and to be given the validation, that the proof of what's possible, right? So if I know that if that someone is doing this, there's another real life human doing XYZ, then that gives me enough social proof to know that it's possible, right? And then if they can give me the information and the knowledge that I need to then go out and do it by myself, I can go and thrive off that, right? Whereas there's other people that have different learning styles, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's more just about understanding the sort of person that you are. So I think with coaching, with mentoring, it's a game changer. As long as you, A, understand what sort of person you are, B, you make sure that you're linked and your personality type is linked with what is being offered, right? And then C is making sure that you actually implement and execute on the things that you're learning, right? And so that's where I think the differentiator is that there will be people out there that see my content, that if they try and do my coaching program, or they try and come and get me to mentor them, it's not going to be the right fit, because they're not the same sort of person that I am. Right. And so the success that I've had with the clients that I've had the most success with up until this point, it's because they are similar in terms of the way that they think and the way that they act and the way that they their risk appetite to me. And that's one of the things that I tell a lot of people, and that I've mentioned in some of my longer form content before, is that you really need to find a mentor or a coach who is a similar sort of person in terms of their personality and their learning style and their execution style to how you are, because their entire approach is going to be catered for that sort of person.
Gotcha. Are there any particular paradigm shifts or something where you saw during a mentorship where you're like, okay, I did not know that was possible, and that then shifted the way you sort of approach your business?
I think within dentistry, one of the biggest things was seeing the extent to which some people can go. You know what I mean? It's a very closed off world in terms of, you a lot of these guys that have been in the industry for an X amount of time, they don't put themselves out there, right? So that's what I mean, is that a big paradigm shift for me was meeting someone that is, owns, hundreds of 100 clinics, right? Wow. And they, bill on their own $10 to $15 million a year, right? And that's a paradigm shift, because it's whoa, I did not know that there's people out there doing that. And right now, you probably never knew that there was general dentists that have done the exact same degree as every single other dentist out there. There's that one end of the spectrum, and then there's the other end of the spectrum of people that are making comfortable 150K a year. Yeah. And there's such a vast range, but that's why I think it's that's why for me as a person, it's a good opportunity, because it means that if I really want to go to the full level, then I can, right? Because it's not it's capped in terms of hours or anything like that. There's and seeing that sort of output from people gives you the ability to realize that, or it gives you the validation to know that, okay, this is possible.
Right. Yeah. And as we sort of come towards the end of this podcast, I really like what you said about like if someone watches your content and they come in and they want to join, just because they want to join doesn't mean you'll bring them in. They have to be the right fit. So for the people watching who are in dentistry, who are wanting to get to the level where you are, they love the personal branding that you're doing, but they just don't know where to start. What is the right fit to work with you?
I think the right fit is anyone that has an open mind to. I think that the best fit is someone who has the open mind in terms of the way to approach things, right? So the people that can't work with me is the people that have already preconceived notions of how things should work. And for those people, just on a fundamental and foundational level, we're not going to fit, right? Because if they believe in those things to the fullest degree, then it basically it boxes them in to not being able to progress beyond a certain level and progress slower than us. Like they can't fathom like progressing in terms of speed beyond a certain speed, right? So it's just if you've already got preconceived notions and you don't have an open mind to how things can evolve and how things can be done, then it's not the right fit. But I think anyone that has the existing like personality traits in that they are open to seeing the possibilities and they don't have any sort of limitations that they set on themselves from the get-go, then it's an open playing field then.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So where can all the good people watching this find you? How can they get in touch with you? What have you got going on?
So obviously Instagram, at Waleed Arshad. That's probably the best place to find me. And then everything that I do, like the YouTube, the long form posts, access to the mini course and applying for mentorship and all of that sort of stuff. It's all like accessible on my Instagram.
Right. So if you're watching this and you want to get in touch, head on over to the Instagram. Dr. Waleed, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Pleasure as well.